Just gonna give it another minute. I think we're ready to start. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Public Art Q&A for the Roxbury Branch of the Boston Public Library, Call to Artists. I'm Sarah Rodrigo. I'm the Public Art Project Manager for the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture. With me tonight are three of my colleagues: Tricia Gilrain, the Art Collections Manager; Christina Carroll, the Communications Director and Director of Public Art for the City of Boston, Karen Goodfellow. The Chief of the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture is Cara Elliott Ortega, although she's not with us tonight. I just want to mention some project partners, which is the Boston Public Library, City of Boston Public Facilities Department, Office of Neighborhood Services, and UTIL, the architect for the project. And I don't believe any of our partners are with us at the moment, although some may be joining us at some point in the call. All right. I'm going to review some meeting protocols really quickly, and then we'll go over a couple images of the building that most of you have probably already seen in the call, and then we will move into questions. So, ways to make comments or ask questions today. When we open up the questions portion, you can use the Zoom platform to raise your hand or let us know that you want to speak by entering a request in the chat. By phone, if you're calling in, you can press *9 to let us know you wish to speak. I don't know that we'll need to do a digital line. We don't have a huge crowd in here tonight, so I think we can just sort of work this out as normal people would if this were in person. You could also just submit your questions and comments in the chat if you don't want to speak. I want you all to remember to remain muted unless you're being called on, and to be respectful of other people's thoughts, opinions, and time. And for those of you who are new to Zoom, we have this lovely graphic that shows you where the chat function is on the bottom of your screen. If you mouse over it, which it doesn't help that I just did that, you can raise hands down there, and when you're called on, you can unmute yourself. So, some quick overview, background information about our program. The Percent for Art program is an initiative of the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture. It's a result of the city's cultural plan, Boston Creates. The program demonstrates the city's and Mayor Walsh's commitment to sustainable funding for the arts by setting aside 1% of the city's annual capital borrowing for the commissioning of permanent public art for capital projects. Beyond integrating public art in city capital projects, the Percent for Art program engages other city agencies and municipal partners on best public art practices and demonstrates the lasting value of high quality public art across the city. I mentioned the Boston Art Commission, which is the commissioning body for the city of Boston. And that's on the next slide. It's housed in the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture. The BAC holds contracts with artists, approves artwork on city land, and conserves the City of Boston's collection of art and historical artifacts. The BAC has a curatorial vision that guides the commission when reviewing and voting on projects. And you may have read it in the call to artists, but I'll share it again here because it's very central to all of these commissioning projects. The curatorial vision is to commission and approve innovative and transformative artworks that engage communities, enrich and enliven the urban environment, are driven by an artistically strong vision, enhance the diversity of the existing collection, respond directly to a specific environment, and possess durability appropriate to the lifespan of the work. And lastly, what is a call to artists? All of you are here because you saw the call to artists for this project. But it's important to understand exactly what a call is. Aside from being a public request for artists to submit their qualifications for consideration for a commission, a call to artists is a legally binding document, and it acts as a guide to the artist, as an artist guide to the project, both the technical details like schedule, engineering constraints, and important thematic considerations like shared community values and vision for the site and the intended users and uses of the site. So with that, let's jump into questions. All right. Does anyone have a question about this call to artists? And I do have some images up if we need to look through them and look at the different sites. But please feel free to raise your hands or type into the chat. All right, I see Blue Velvet.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, first of all, my name is Victoria Surliuga. I am calling from Texas Tech University. I had some problems in using my university Zoom account, and that's why I'm using something with a more eclectic name, so to speak. So I wanted to ask, are international artists allowed to be represented? So if I wanted to apply on behalf of someone on whose work I've already written several books, for instance, of course, with their approval, I'm not talking about doing this independently. Would this be a possibility?
Yeah, the call is open to all artists,
Yes.
national and international. So yes, international artists can apply. We do specify in the call that, you know, it's important to have a connection to Roxbury, to the neighborhood.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And we do ask that artists, and I'm looking for the exact wording here.
Yes.
Yeah, that, you know, what
you.
the connection is to the site and the neighborhood. And
of course.
The neighborhood.
Of course. Of course. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time on this. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Anybody else have a question? You can see in the chat that Christina Carroll just posted links to the call, to the application, to the project-specific web page, and some information about the branch itself.
Should we look at the location and see if that prompts any questions?
Yeah, and I do have some questions that other people have sent in that I can go over as well. Oh, I see a question from, is it Matea Fitz? The budget is set. So yeah, that's an interesting, so Matea's asking, I'm wondering if the project has to utilize the full budget. And typically, yes. We're not looking at the budget amounts in the sense of, let me pause for a second, gather my response. So we're not looking for the lowest bidder, which is something that other departments may do under their commissioning guidelines. And I'm not sure if that answers the question. I'm happy to clarify further.
Yeah, hi there. Sorry, hi. I was busy at the moment. Like
no worries.
You're busy. I was just wondering because I saw that the budget was $150,000, and I definitely would plan on like utilizing it to the fullest. But I'm just like, have to be like when I list out the budget, like does it have to fully amount to the $150,000? Is it okay if it's less?
Yeah, I think it's okay if it's less, but typically it does amount to the $150,000.
Okay. Cool, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I see it in the chat as well from Pedro Cruz. Do we have to have exact numbers for the budget when we submit the proposal, or can we submit a rough estimate and finalize after, or if chosen? Yes, we're looking for a preliminary budget. And I shouldn't even say preliminary, sort of a rough idea budget, essentially. The different phases of the project, you'll refine the budget as you go along, because it's really difficult. No one's going to go out there and get quotes for a call where we're asking you to submit, you know, images. It's not that finalized. So yes, you would be refining the budget as you learned more and as your proposal was refined and eventually went into final design. So I'm sorry, I don't know if that answered it either as well. So Pedro, feel free to ask a follow-up question. If you can unmute. All right, so some of the other questions that I've received. Oh, I did answer it. Okay, another question. Saw mentions of insurance. You don't need to have your insurance mentioned before the proposal. That is something that can be taken care of after. It's not a bad idea to look into it for any public artist who's starting to apply to larger commissions, to get a sense of what that might look like and get an idea of different policies that are out there and that are available and what kind of cost you might be looking at. But it is not required to submit to this call by any means. It is something that we would require if you were selected and as part of the contracting process.
Thank you. And this is Pedro. Sorry about that. I got some teenagers and young ones running around, so I'm trying to save you guys from the background noise.
Thanks. No worries. I think we're all in that boat in one way or another at this point. All right, so some of the other questions, and people can just jump in if things come up. Obviously, you can see on the screen, this is the library, the renovated library. These images are courtesy of UTIL. It is completed. It's not open, unfortunately, at this point. But, oh, sorry, I'll go backwards. No, I'll go forwards. And this, this is the site that we are commissioning this work for. It's directly into the entrance. So if I go back a slide or two, you can see here in this image to the right, we would be standing facing into the branch with the site to your right-hand side as you walk into the entrance. So it's a very prominent spot in the branch. I see a question from Catherine. Is there any material that is not allowed? Not that I'm aware of, although there are limitations structurally to this particular site. There is not backing on the wall, so we can't have anything that's incredibly heavy mounted into this space. There's not extra backing, although there are kind of typical structure, studs, drywall. You can see from this photo, it's a standard wall. So that is a material limitation in the sense that the loads will have to be, the weights will have to be relatively light compared to if there had been, say, plywood put behind, things of that nature. There's no power to this particular space. There's power close by, so I wouldn't rule out something that requires electric, but it is a consideration for artists who are proposing if they're interested in lights. And Karen just noted, we're looking for durability in materials and concerns around maintenance, which are really, really important. This is a very well-used, popular branch of the Boston Public Library. So obviously we want something that is durable, has a longevity to it. This is a long-term commission. So those are important considerations. And I hope, Catherine, that answered your question. And here's another angle. You can see the front entrance outside the windows. So there are some views as well from the entry plaza to the space.
I have another question if I can jump in.
Of course.
This is Pedro again. Just thinking out loud right now, is there any guidelines in terms of, does it have to be one solid piece within that space? Can it be a multi-piece within that space as long as it fits within that 12 by 8? Or I don't know if my question makes sense.
It does. Yeah, it does make sense. We don't have any constrictions at this point on whether it would be one large piece or multiple pieces. This is the site, the wall. So no, there's no limitation in terms of would it be a series or would it be a single piece? Does that answer your question? I see, Pedro, you muted again, but if it didn't, feel free to unmute. All right, great. And Catherine, we answered yours. Excellent. All right, I had a couple other questions that I'll go over that came in via email that may be of interest. Someone asked if they should draft up a digital drawing of what their idea for the space is. And that is a very firm no. No one should be submitting original designs or drawings for this site. We only ask for a narrative proposal. So we want you to write about what you might do in this space if you were to win the commission. And that's part of the application. If you go back to that link in submittable, it does give you some guidance on the written narrative piece. Another artist asked if muralists are able to apply to the call, and muralists are able to apply, absolutely. And another artist asked if the artwork should be two-dimensional because it is a wall near the entrance. And my response is that we didn't specify two-dimensional artwork only because not all artists who create wall-hung artworks consider their works to be two-dimensional. So that's another consideration, although again, we do have some limitations in terms of weights. All right. Do I have any more images? Well, I have some links to share with you all, but they're not nearly as interesting as the images.
I have another question.
Please.
Yeah, sorry, I feel like I'm stepping up too much.
No, not at all.
Is there a hard date in terms of when the announcement for the artist is gonna come out after all the submissions go in? Like is there a date that we could look out for that we'll know for a fact by this day whether it was whether who was chosen or not?
There's not a hard date. So when we go through the artist selection process, there's quite a few variables, and ideally we would be able to give you a hard date for that. But there really are too many variables between the interview process. So I'll back up a little bit. Once everyone submits their portfolios, we have an artist selection committee who will then review the portfolios independently and rate them. And then they'll all get together and review them together and select 3 finalists for interviews, after which the interviews will happen. And then the committee makes a recommendation to the Boston Art Commission. The commission will review those finalists and the recommendation and then vote on the artist selected. We then go into a contracting phase. So we try to let people know if they were not selected to be a finalist so that people aren't waiting. But in terms of announcing the artist that won, it can sometimes take quite a long time. Because we don't want to announce until they're actually under contract with us typically. So there is no hard date. There is a schedule in the call that we will do our best to stick to. This is a relatively short timeline. I think you've probably all seen that the work should be installed in a year. So for a commission of this scale, that's a relatively quick timeline. So we will do our best and keep everyone informed. I think when Christina posted our project webpage, and that is updated as we move through the process. All right. Let's see. it's a really nice library. Does anybody have any other questions or comments?
I do.
Great.
So if the piece is an installation piece, can it extend onto that ceiling, or is it just that wall?
That's a good question.
Even if it's lightweight.
Right. I think that's something that would have to be reviewed
Okay.
by the library, by the BPL, and by facilities and the BAC. I'm looking at the lighting in the ceiling and what the possibilities might be. I'm not sure what is behind here in terms of utilities, and what kind of structural there might be in the ceiling. So I'm not going to rule it out, but we have identified this as the site, and I know that the library is very comfortable with that as the site.
Okay.
It's a really good question, though. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. I was just wondering if I should plan. So I should probably just plan for the wall then, but.
Yeah, I mean, this, it's a proposal where you're talking about your approach. So things do develop as the project moves along. The artist that's commissioned, once they get the drawings for what's in the wall and start conversations, things do sometimes change. So I don't want to give you a hard no, but I would encourage you to focus on the wall.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
It's me again. Surprise, Pedro.
That's great.
I got a question.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but I just wanna verify and confirm so I can walk away from this confident. There's no preference to any medium, right? It's open to any. The applications are open to any. There's no preference. There's
no preference, but again, I'll just reiterate that it's a long-term commission. There are, there's always going to be questions about maintenance and about durability. Sure. And then some limitations around weight and things of that nature. But other than that, no, there's no preference for any specific material.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure. I'm just looking at some of the questions, see if there's anything I missed that was sent in. Actually, there was an artist who asked about the annotated image list and what exactly we were looking for. So I'll just say the annotated image list is a written list that tells us about the images that are being submitted. So we would ask that any images that are submitted of past work, that there's a number assigned to it in the file name, and then in the doc file or PDF, that aligns with some information about the artwork. I thought that was, not always clear to everybody, and a good question.
Sarah, I'm going to have to jump off. Everyone, thanks for joining us tonight. I'll leave you with Sarah and Christina and Trisha. But I'm off to my next meeting. Thanks,
Karen, thanks so much for making time to be with us.
Bye.
All right, everyone can relax and ask more questions now. I'm joking, obviously. Let's see. So I can just talk a little bit about the size. We have outlined this particular sort of site, which you've seen in the call. I think, is it Matea? I don't want to mispronounce your name. So I thought that was a really great.
Matea.
Matea, thank you. I thought that was a really great question about the ceiling. And you will see that here, when this was outlined by the BPL, that they did leave a little bit of a space at the top, but again, I don't know that, we don't want to be super regimented, just to have people focus on this site is good. The shelves are, I'm assuming this is a child because the bookcase, if you see, is quite a bit lower than if that were a grown-up, I would think, typically. Anyway. Cool. Yeah, so it's, you know, it's not a huge site, but it is really significant, and it's really, really central when you visit the branch. And I've been lucky enough to go to the site and take a walk around. And this is really going to be the piece that welcomes people into the branch. It's, I think it's going to be a very memorable and very iconic artwork that will go into this space.
I just came up with a question.
Sure. Pedro, you're keeping me alive out here. I appreciate it. Between you and Mateo.
I've had a little experience with these projects, so I'm trying to get all the questions out now before we hang up. I'm like, I should have asked. So just to be clear, just for my own sanity, if I read the documents right, the artist payment is capped at 30%, or am I guessing that?
I think the guidance on the budget was 20. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I just wanted to clarify. So that means 20% out of the 150.
Yes. So it'd be 30,000.
Cool. All right. Thank you. Just wanted to make that
clear.
Sure. And by the way, your presentation was great. You did great today.
Thanks. Thank you. What does everybody else think? Anybody? All right, I'm going to go back to, thank you, Jeremy. It's very nice. I just want to go back to this again because I don't know if I fully explained that this is the entrance here. And so there are going to be some great viewpoints into the space. Daniel, I see that the statement of interest is saying, yes, it's stating your interest in the project. That's right. So it's in the statement of interest, which is also the narrative proposal. So the initial, we're calling it the initial project concept. What we're asking for is for you to talk about your connection to the site, to the neighborhood, and what you think you might do for this project, sort of how you came to this call. Just speak to your interest in it and what you might do if you were to win this commission. And when I say do, in terms of what kind of artwork you might create if you were to win this commission. Typically, artists relate it to their portfolio, so work that they've already done, or ideas, themes, materials that they are interested in, that they're working in, things that they've been pursuing, but that also relate to this, to the site. And I'm seeing some good questions in here. So Jeremy asked, due to pandemic concerns, is there an expected opening date and how will that look? I am not sure at this point when this branch will open. I think the central branch is partially opening, but this branch was scheduled to open a few months ago. Obviously the pandemic has stopped that. So I can't answer that question. I'm sorry. I honestly don't know when it will open, but we would like to get the artwork in there within a year. Ideally, the branch will open sooner than that. And then Jordan asked, it said, it seemed like the main criteria for the project is focusing on economic justice. Can you elaborate on that? So there was a proposed partnership with the King Center for Economic Justice that, and you could see it in the call. I think we included a flyer that was, they were thinking of citing the center or having it represented in this branch. Those conversations are ongoing. And they're, I'm sorry, I'm trying to read the chat at the same time that I'm talking. I should not do that. So King Boston and the Boston Public Library are in talks for this particular branch to host or otherwise hold collections for the King Center for Economic Justice. That's part 2 of King Boston's project. You all may be familiar with the memorial artwork, sort of large scale, huge artwork that's going to be going in the Boston Common by Hank Willis Thomas in partnership with Mass Design Group. So that's one part of King Boston. The second part is the King Center for Economic Justice, and that's still in development. So part of our conversation with the BPL and with King Boston was to have this artwork reflect that as its theme. There's also the themes that this is a library and a very specific branch. All the branches have their own character, their own community around them. So that's also important to think about when you're thinking about applying. And honestly, Jordan, I'm not sure if I answered your question. I definitely elaborated, but I don't know if I elaborated well. So please feel free to ask a follow-up. And then Daniel is asking, the artist selection is based on the statement plus a portfolio. So the artist selection committee, yes, excuse me. The artist selection committee will review your statements, your relevant work samples, your portfolios, your own bio, so your experience, your resume, whatever you submit for your artist description. And of course, the annotated image list that goes along with the work samples. So they will look at those and they will look at them in the context of the criteria that we put in the call. So if you look at page 9 of the call, there's criteria, the first of which is the curatorial vision that I went over a couple slides back. And I'll just pull that up again so we can look at it together. And this curatorial vision is the guidance that the BAC uses and that all of our artist selection committees use to look at portfolios and artists' proposals. They'll also look for consideration of the neighborhood, site, and theme, so that connection consideration of this specific branch. And the portfolio. So essentially, yes, that is what the artist selection is based on, is the statement, is your documents that you're submitting. And then the criteria, they use that in the context of the criteria that's included in the call. So Daniel, I hope that answers your question. They'll base it on these things that we're asking everyone to submit.
Hi, Sarah, I'm back. So from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, from my understanding, there's going to be, throughout the city, there's going to be multiple call for artists. That's yes. My first question, right? And then, so if it's a yes, my initial question would be, if we get accepted for this, God willing, does that disqualify us from future contract calls? And then the other question would be, if we don't get chosen, could we continue to apply?
Yes, to the second question, absolutely. We actually have another call open right now for the Adams Street branch. So you can apply. A lot of artists will apply to multiple calls over time. You would not be precluded from winning other commissions, but I will draw your attention to the part of the curatorial vision here where it says we are looking for diversity of the existing collection. And that's a pretty broad statement. Part of what that means is having a wide number of artists, a lot of different artists create work for the city. So people are not disqualified from getting other commissions, but it is something that the committee and the commission, the Boston Art Commission, will consider when looking at artists for future projects, whether or not they have other works in the city, how many other works they have, and where they're located, because it's a big city. And we do have a lot of calls right now. I think we have, I think it's 12 or 14 active commissions. We have a bunch of other calls coming up in the coming months. And as I mentioned, we have an Adams Street branch call that's open right now, which is a very different project. It's an exterior courtyard project. There'll be a Q&A next week as well for that one, if any of you are interested.
No, that's awesome. And then my last question, because I got another meeting I got to fly to.
Sure.
My last question would be, is there anywhere online that we could see all those calls for action in case we might fit for one more than the other and we just want to know how to, because right now I'm only aware of this one and I would like to look at the other ones just to see if I might fit another one better than this one or vice versa.
Right. So actually, there's all the links. If you scroll up in the chat, and we could post them again. Christina shares a lot of, Christina's our communications director. She shares a ton of information, and we can also go to this page.
Oh, where it says call for artists and that link?
Oh, sorry about that. How did I just do that? Man, can you all still see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, good. So, and here you can sign up for our newsletters and follow the Arts in Boston Instagram. There's Christina just posted the call to artist link, the application link, and the project webpage. The application link will take you to Submittable. We do have other calls posted on Submittable. There's our main public art page. There's quite a few different things. I would recommend signing up for the newsletters.
Beautiful.
There's 2 newsletters. There's the artist resource newsletter, and Christina, I'm forgetting the name of your newsletter, where all these calls are posted. Arts in the City. Thank you. Yes. How could I forget that? So definitely sign up for the newsletters. Any call we put out will be posted in the newsletters, and then check in on the public art page, boston.gov/public-art.
Awesome.
And you can see all the different projects we have. Those pages get updated and we post all the calls there. So I strongly encourage you to keep tabs on that and to sign up for the newsletters. There's a ton of great information in both newsletters. Julia is our artist resource desk manager, and she will post, both she and Christina post links to other opportunities, to grants, to public art things that are happening around the city, and just of general interest to artists. There's a lot of information that they share, so those are valuable resources. All right, I feel like I missed a question from Jeremy. Yes, he said, speaking hypothetically, if I was commissioned, would the project just be mine? Yes. You would not have to partner with another artist unless you opted to, but we're not, we wouldn't be splitting this commission. So if a team applies and wins it, obviously they would be partnered together because they applied as a team. But if an individual artist applies and is awarded the commission, then that is their commission. We're not going to kind of try and force relationships or split the commission at this point. That goes back to the call being a legal document as well. We couldn't split the commission because it is for an artist or artist team. So on the first page, it says we will select one artist or artist team for this commission, and we are held to that. If the artist decides to then hire another artist or have a subcontractor or create a partnership, that's their choice, but not something that we would not something we would do to them. So you're welcome. So many good links. And there's my email address as well. We will be posting answers to these questions on Friday. Really unfortunate, I'll have to watch this recording of myself talking again, which is just too bad. But we'll also be posting any of the written questions that I received and the questions from tonight in case you guys need a refresher or want to kind of look over this information again. All right. Well, you're welcome. Does anybody have any? You're welcome. Thank you, Matea and Gianna. If nobody has any other questions, I think we can wrap it up. I don't see anybody else looking to come in. You're welcome, Catherine. You're welcome. Thank you all for joining. This was really great. I look forward to seeing applications.